All right, so today I've been watching Neil deGrasse Tyson's masterclass about scientific thinking. So lots of good stuff there. One thing that particularly stood out was the idea that an objective truth can only be arrived through the corroboration of experiments, meaning that taking an idea and testing it and seeing the results of that is not enough to determine that whatever it is that your results show is actually true for everyone else. Most of the time it's hard to filter out what is either our own personal experience and any sort of mistake that we've made with the testing. Just basically calibration, miscalculation. So corroboration of many experiments, that if you have 2 or 3 experiments that have given more or less the same results, then it's not enough to determine that those are the kind of results that you will see all the time, because between 2 or 3 occasions, it's by 2 or 3 people is too little a number to say that it's completely mistakeless, or that you can't. It's more to say that you can't cross-reference the methods and the results from it to gather into to average out the real truth out of it. So 2 3 people versus 100 versus 1,000, the more that you get, the more you can accurately determine what is the common point between everything, and that's where the real truth of the result comes out. Inevitably there's always going to be one small factor that may change the way that you interpret the data that you get from the experiment. One small way that makes you think in a specific way about the results that you have collected from your test. So the more different people make tests, the more you can cross-reference the results and see what is actually happening. So I found that pretty interesting. I guess in a sense, that's how copywriting could be improved. More or less, when we want to get better at developing good copy, or just about anything really, this even also applies to marketing, we tend to look at books, learn from knowledgeable people, courses, online articles, YouTube videos. All of that gives you, the most that it can give you is their own experience, and even their own experience from the research that they have done. Anything that you give out to share is inevitably subjective in some imperceivable way. So the more that you gather information from different sources, the more you start to really understand what is going on behind the scenes of what works for for marketing and overall just developing good copy. The idea of developing good copy is to copy from the most successful copies, in the sense that how much revenue they have been able to generate, which is smart in of itself, but the limit is that much. Pretty much you take inspiration, you copy from the proven sales copy, and you add your own twist. As long as it's intentional, then you're able to find out if what it is that you've added works better or perhaps even works worse. But that's a pretty important part on overall just developing good copy. Because at some point, if everyone were to simply copy from the best and doing it in their own way without any sort of intention on experimenting, oh, will this new twist that I add work or not? If people don't do that intentionally, then eventually we'll all reach a point where we're all writing the exact same thing and nothing is improved. So just because something works doesn't mean it can't work better. The question is to find out how. And there's no way of knowing. There's only guessing from what we can interpret how something might work. It's a bunch of guesswork. This is kind of what Neil deGrasse Tyson is referring to, the frontier of science, where you don't know what you don't know, and because of that, there's no way of discovering something well from the beginning. There has to be a lot of shots in the dark for you to come out with something, and then building on that. You give the example of that the more that you're able to know, the better questions you'll be able to ask. And that's what really drives you to gain a better understanding and hopefully using the science behind it to your own benefit. So he says something like, in the frontier of science, you would ask some sort of question like, what kind of cheese is the moon made of? And to all of us who know that the moon is not made out of cheese, would say that's simply the wrong question to ask. But the only reason that we're saying that is because we already know that the moon is not made out of cheese. So if you were just discovering something that you don't know anything about, and nobody ever does, that sort of question of what kind of cheese is the moon made of is something that you have to consider, simply because you know nothing about it. You can only maybe have an idea of how something works, and and frame your questions on that, even though it can be completely wrong. But the point is that the more that you try and shoot in the dark, the more information that you get and the better questions that you'll be able to ask. So treating all your research on marketing and copywriting when you're trying to develop that skill, it's okay to take courses, learn about it, and copy from the best. But at the same time, nothing about it is ever set on stone. So the more that you can follow a certain framework, the more able you are to ask questions, even though they might not be the right ones. The point is to be able to have an idea and test it out, see how it works. Because if you don't, then you're simply not progressing. So yes, the next time that you research something, try it out for yourself. Add your own twist based on of what you've learned. Okay, yeah. So learn something new, develop an idea from it on how you could use it and how you could tweak it to fit better what you're using it for. Try that out, see how it goes. If it goes well, just take note that it worked well. Doesn't mean that it's going to work well always, but keep in mind that small change that you made and save it for later. For something completely different that you might try, you might as well add that in and see if it works or not. That way you know the capabilities, the range of how that result reflects what you did. So do that. Experiment. Try it out. I know I will. So for now, toodaloo. See you tomorrow.